drama film called Eden. Spoiler: to come take care of yourself and good. Viewing. The movie starts in Switzerland in 1904, where some guys drag a woman across a bridge. The woman, whose name is Sabina, is sent to a mental hospital for treatment because she has hysterical disorder, a mental illness in which the patient loses control of her emotions. Dr. Karl Lung, a young Swiss physician, will be in charge. Despite her claims that on most days, they will just speak for an hour or two. He trusts the idea of word associations to assess his patient's conditions during treatment. Sabina is seated behind Jung, so she does. In order to prevent her from feeling frightened, he asks her what she wants, which sets off her dilemma. And Sabina reacts to numerous types of humiliation, which made her perspire. Her father beat her as a child and then had her kiss her. Jung then holds his hand after him. He is reading to his wife, who is expecting. From Sabina's paperwork, he discovers that she is healthy, who is intelligent and wants to become a doctor. Jung reveals to Emma one day that this technique of treatment is called the Tolkien cure. It was Sigmund Freud's idea, but he hasn't yet established the fundamental principles of psychoanalysis in young people or the first person. Jung takes a stroll to later experience it. He grows upset and tosses his coat as Sabina walks with her and attempts to learn more about her condition. He grabs it and flings it his way. Stick that causes triggers. After some time, a young man visits him and informs him that he spoke to the director, which causes Sabina to become confused and rip off his coat and request to return to the facility. His interest in medicine generally. Sabina can now assist him. Occasionally during his studies. Jung then uses word association on Hemats while Sabine selects specific terms, and M is required to respond with the first thought that occurs to her when she hears those words following the operation. Sabina came to the conclusion that his wife worries about Jung losing interest in her as well as thinking a lot about her pregnancy, which is understandable. After some time, Madonna gives birth to a baby girl and apologizes to Jung for not getting a son. Jung tells him to stop being absurd because he is also content with having a daughter in the family. He probes further deeply into his memories in his subsequent conversation with Sabina. Sabina confesses that when she was younger, her father spanked her while she was still undressed after she shattered a plate, but she genuinely enjoyed it and it turned her on permanently. She tore off when the jungle slammed into her coat since she had endured various forms of humiliation ever since. She believes she should remain in the asylum forever because of this. Jung and Emma see the doctor several years later. Jung tells Sigmund Freud that Sabina is doing extremely well and that she is much better now that they have enrolled her in medical school. The two men then discuss for hours about psychoanalysis and how dreams alter people's minds. They talked about their theories and views for 13 hours, and Jung. He meets Sabina when he returns to Switzerland, and claims that while Freud is not at all what he had anticipated, his followers are not at all what he had imagined either. He is also concerned with expressing every symptom in sexual terms. Impressive wants to follow his own beliefs and thinks there are factors outside sex. Later when Sabina inquires about her suitability as a psychiatrist, Jung responds with a resounding yes. He has only heard positive things about her college report, and she is precisely the kind of person they need. Jung is now asked by Freud in a letter to take care of an autocross analyst who is clever but irrational. From now until October, Jung finds that Jung Hem is his only wife Emma and favors monogamy logically, and it's even convincing. Jung also learns that Jung Hem has been abused by his father and that he is a strong advocate of polygamy. Jung is emphatic and thinks it strange to engage in sexual activity with his patients at such a young age. He runs with Sabina again every now and then, and she talks about her sexuality. She claims that she studied a lot of sexual topics in college and is now more aware that she has never had a sexual experience. Then she asks Jung to come to her building and gives him an unexpected kiss. Jung then speaks to Otto, who invites him to visit Sabina's building and provide her with the basic pleasure she craves if he wants to take the initiative. Jung is still hesitant, though it is the right thing to do, but there are some potent techniques to help. Then, if things continue as they are, he will be persuaded. Physical with an asylum employee before escaping the area. A young man approaches his chamber using a ladder and discovers his work on. He withdraws from polygamy and pleasures. Enticing him to meet Sabina, who they quickly get close with and who will read this manuscript in secret the following day. The Emma left port. He has always wanted a red sailboat. When Emma gives birth to a child, Jung is thrilled to see him, but he stops the relationship quickly after being conflicted over whether to continue his affair or not after Sabina persuades him to do so. She also wants him to be strict with her and spank her as her father used to. Having sex with Sabina in the course of. Fred informs Jung that he would never have needed to send him an auto during the boat time, but Jung responds that he assisted him to crystallize a significant portion of his thoughts. Freud thought after the automobile had left. Wants to raise him like her son and eventually adopt him. Is unsure of how to explain his wish to research parapsychology and telepathy, yet Freud wants him to concentrate on young people's sex theory. Dee expresses her frank disagreement with him, and then a Youngwood cracks claims that he sensed a tingling in his diaphragm that alerted him to the impending event. Believes it's absurd, but Young predicts it will occur once again, and it does. What happens when the wood splits? Freud still believes it to be an accident, which backs up Young's concerns regarding his. When the wit is turned off, we can see Sabina, who is young, spanking a man. According to Solar Lexic, their relationship with young guys is still active today. Freud goes out on a boat. Freud acknowledges that a rumor is spreading. According to rumors in Vienna, Jung is allegedly embracing a patient's mistress's accusation, and Freud's cross Jung subsequently discusses it with Sabina, and admits that he feels terrible and torn, so he resolves to quit their relationship, but she makes an effort. Prevent them. One day when Jung grudgingly departs, Sabina storms into his office and demands to know why he told his mother about their relationship. He responds that he made a silly error and that his mother already knew about it. By having this affair, and now that he is only a doctor, his patient Sabina became furious as he was leaving. She is cut by a knife from the table. Jung watches in shock as she leaves. Then, in a letter to Freud, Sabina requests that they speak because it would be advantageous for both of them. In the letter, she also makes reference to having a sexual relationship with Jung. When Freud reads the letter to Jung and inquires about the woman, Jung replies that she was just a friend. And the fact that he has not fallen victim to these seduction tactics suggests that it is likely an attempt at retaliation. Jung also asks Freud to act as an intermediary between them because this woman has already done him a lot of harm. Sabina receives an answer from Freud, denies seeing her and asserts that she is a child, is not capable of such impolite behavior, and he needs to take care of it, even without needing a middleman like him to solve their issues. Sabina's heart is broken by this answer. It once more travels to Lyon's office. Surprised by Jung, she apologizes if she forced him to leave, but Jung responds that he was already planning to leave. Afterwards confronts him, saying, there is no their green relationship. He claims that it is none of his business, but Sabina wants him to pen a fruit letter and divulge all to her so that Freud can. She can be his patient, he concedes. She is told by Control that he's headed to Americas. He hears from Sabina that it's good. Freud reads Jung's letter and confesses his relationship. As a result, he writes to Sabina to apologize. He is impressed with how she handled the situation and agrees to meet her. Later, Freud and Jung board a ship for America, where they will provide the rest of the world with their theories on psychoanalysis. They argue frequently with one another, even on the ferry, and it is obvious that their friendship is faltering. Freud refuses to share his dreams after Jung's dream is detailed for the analysis, which even enraged me more. He corrects each other's errors and transmits their arguments back and forth during the session. It further accentuates how sour their relationship is and how all of their rivals in the eyes of the world. After some time, Sabina meets Jung while she is in Switzerland working on her thesis. However, they begin a physical relationship once more, and Jung begs her not to leave this time, but she is adamant and decides to leave this time to Vienna. 2 years later, Sabina has graduated from medical school and meets with Freud to discuss his theory. She believes that sexual activity is both a productive and a destructive act because it can cause two people to split apart and allow for a new person. I'm worried Jung will need a job jointly to strengthen the pillars of psychoanalysis. Due to their differences, my breaks do not want to work with Jung, but he still entrusts Sabina with some of his patients. Jung and Freud try to work things out in their letters for a while, but in vain. Later, Freud made the decision to stop their contact, and a year ago, he sent him one final letter. One day, Sabina Emma and I meet in her garden. Now married and expecting a child, she, following a few conversations and my desire. He hasn't been himself, according to Sabina D.D. Jung, since he stopped speaking to Freud, and he has trouble sleeping. After accepting, Sabina goes to speak with Jung, realizes that he is not like Jung before him when he sits next to him, explains to him that he frequently dreams of the end of the world, or a flood kills millions of people, keeping him from getting any sleep. Jung correctly directs the conversation to Freud and says that he lost her. He wants to create a system that does not just heal the patients but also aids them in determining what they need after he refused to communicate his dream in an effort to uphold his authority. Jung wants you to know that he still desires Sabina, but there is nothing I can do about it in the end. At the movie's conclusion, we discover that Otto is starving to death in Berlin. Nazis drove Freud from Vienna, where he later succumbed to cancer. Despite being shot, Sabina coached some of the most well-known analysts in the new Soviet Union. Jung eventually overcame a nervous breakdown for the top psychologist and died quietly in a nearby synagogue in 1961. Be sure to subscribe so you can watch more movie recaps like this. Thanks for watching.